सत्यमयि परमे सत्यं ज्ञानं सत्यं ज्ञानं ज्योतिररविन्द ज्योतिररविन्द ज्योतिररविन्द. So when you think of the fire element, what comes to mind? What would you say if fire was a person? What would be the qualities the person fire would have? Yeah, anyone?
Anger?
No, we are looking at the essence of fire. Essence is not the destructive aspect, in its positive aspect. Yeah, fire is transforming, purifying. What else is fire? It's energy. What else is it?
Self-purification.
Fire can be aspiration also, yes.
Light.
It's light, it's brightness, illumination, all that. So the very deity of the psychic being is Agni, right? We've heard that often. But let's talk about fire in its two aspects. One is the psychic fire, which is aspiration. The very quality of aspiration is fire, because fire is one-pointed. They always try to reach the sky, the flames. Even if the wind pushes them in one direction, fire will find a way to rise up and go. It won't stay like this. It will again go up towards the sky. So that's the quality of aspiration, the psychic aspiration. It's one-pointed. You can't push it. I mean, psychic is always aspiring only for God. Like Mother says, whatever the impurities in the outer being, the psychic is always turned towards the divine like a sunflower to the sun. So the psychic fire is always burning in one direction. But well, if you look at the Sankhya philosophy and you talk of the Panch Mahabhutas, the 5 great principles of existence, Agni is one of the Panch Mahabhutas, and its seat is, in terms of Sankhya philosophy, not in the heart but in the Manipur chakra at the navel, which is the seat of the fire element. So the psychic fire, we don't have to really do anything about. It's already burning. It's a fuel-less fire. It's already moving towards the divine. But it's the physical fire of our being which we have to channelize and make it one with the calling of the psychic fire. In a way, Mother talks about that as the process of unification, right? To unify the will of the vital, mental, physical around the will of the psychic. So, I want you to think of 3 things. So, fire element is also willpower, right? So, 3 things which you say, want to frame for yourself, I will. Complete it for yourself. 3 things that you will to do which will bring you closer to Mother, Light, whatever you call it. Just raise your hands once you're clear what those 3 things will be. Got it? Yeah? 2 or 3 things. And think of 3 things where it goes to I will not. For example, what makes your fires move away from the Mother? Maybe too much scrolling on Insta, checking your WhatsApp a lot, or getting triggered in a particular way which you know takes you away from the mother. So I will not, 2 or 3 things. It's individual to you, just figure it out. Got it? Now put your hand on your Manipur chakra, front and back. Back, maybe the back of your palm can touch the back. Front and back. And just connect with the fire element there. Actually twin your consciousness with Agni. Fires of a temple, a diya, candle. And twinning with the fire element, articulate with focus, I will. As if that sentence itself is kindling the fire element, and complete it. The first thing you really will. I will remember mother before every meal. One example. I will be peaceful through whatever work I'm doing. I will have a proper work-life balance. I'm giving you examples. It can be anything you like. Say them again and again, kindling your fire element, seeing mother at the Manipur chakra as if she is the fire there, and offering these sentences as ahuti to that fire. And then I will not. Whatever, I will not spend unnecessary time scrolling the media. I will not get triggered by whatever. Think of what you're doing which takes you away from mother and your inner light. And I will not. And then relax your hand. So now let's read mother's words on, well, fire is aspiration. Like each element has a quality, right? So fire is aspiration. So mother says, you aspire for a certain state. For instance, you have found something in yourself that is not in keeping with your ideal. A movement of darkness and ignorance, perhaps even of ill will, something that's not in harmony with what you want to realize. Yeah, so remember, anger, ill will, it always puts a veil between you and your light. So Eknath Ishwaran says it so beautifully, bearing resentment towards any being is more than one impaired relationship. It's breaking your relationship with your wholeness. You cut away from the whole space that you are every time you bear resentment. Yeah? So, something that's not in harmony with what you want to realize, then that is not going to be formulated in words. That will be like a springing flame and like an offering made of a living experience, asking to grow larger, be magnified, and ever more and more clear and precise. All that may be put into words later, if one tries to remember and note down the experience. But aspiration always springs up like a flame that rises high and carries in itself the one thing desired to be, that one desires to be, or one desires to do or desires to have. I use the word desire, but truly it is the word aspire should be used, for that does not have either the quality or form of a desire. It is truly like a great purifying flame of will, and it carries in its core the thing that asks to be realized. For instance, if you have done something you regret having done, and all of us have that, come sit there. For instance, if you have done something you regret having done, and all of us regret doing so many things so many times in the day, right? This is a very beautiful thing Mother says. I found it so practical and lovely. She says, if you have done something you regret having done, if that has unhappy consequences which disturb things and several people are implicated, means what you've done has disturbed many people and many people are suffering for what you've done. You do not know the reaction of the others, but you yourself wish that what has been done may take a turn for the best, and that if there is a mistake it may be understood, and that no matter what the mistake, this may be for you an opportunity for a greater progress, a greater discipline, a new ascent towards the divine, a door open on a future that you want to be more clear and true and intense. So all this is gathered here, pointing to the heart like a force, and then it surges up and rises in a great movement of ascent, and at times without the shadow of formulation, without words, without expression, like a springing flame. This indeed is true aspiration. That may happen 100, 1,000 times daily if one is in that state in which one constantly wants to progress and be more true and more fully in harmony with what the divine will wants for us, of us. So she's made a very, very important point. I'll say it again. So she's saying, yes, we are human. Human error will happen. We will make mistakes in our relationships, in our work, in whatever. And that unconsciousness will have repercussions. It will hurt ourselves, it will hurt others. But Mother says, don't be like an ostrich and ignore it. Don't say, "Theek hai, it happens." That's not good. On the other hand, don't go to the other extreme of whipping up a lot of guilt in you. Because Mother says, of all emotions, the most corrosive for your growth is guilt. Whatever you've done, make an aspiration of it, that Mother, I've done this, but I really want it not to repeat. Whatever is the, see in Savitri there's a line, all our outwards happenings have their seed within. So whatever has happened outside, which may be through my unconsciousness, there may be some seed of unconsciousness in me, make it conscious so that next time I don't go in the same circle again. So Mother says, sit with yourself, formulate a very conscious aspiration and offer it to the divine. See, when I've often said don't feel guilty, but I find that some people take that to be, don't look at your mistakes, just say it's okay, I've done it, it's fine. That's also not the correct attitude. Look at it, learn from it, make an aspiration to Mother that let it not happen again. Show me where I'm going wrong and let me correct it. And she says this can be done many times a day, because in little ways we are making so many mistakes so many times, in our kitchen, here, there, everywhere we are making little errors because of our unconsciousness. So Mother says, every time you make an error, don't feel guilty. Be kind to yourself, but put a will for progress, that don't let this repeat, Mother. Show me where I'm going wrong, change it. So that's a very practical thing she said. If you are in a state of conscious aspiration and very sincere, well, everything around you will be arranged in order to help in your aspiration, whether directly or indirectly. Such a beautiful and heartening thing. She's saying, if you're in a state of aspiration which is very sincere, But that is really quite difficult for us to be in a constant and intense state of aspiration. She's saying if you are in a constant and intense state of aspiration, then this will happen. So then what will happen? Everything around you will be arranged in order to help you in your aspiration, whether directly or indirectly. That is either to make you progress, put you in touch with something new, or to eliminate from your nature something that has to disappear. This is something quite remarkable. If you are truly in a state of intensity of aspiration, there is not a circumstance which does not come to help you to realize this aspiration. This is beautiful. Huh? If you are in an intensity of aspiration, the divine arranges every circumstance in your life to help you achieve your aspiration. Everything comes, everything as though there were a perfect and absolute consciousness organizing around you all things. And you yourself in your outer ignorance may not recognize it and may protest at first against the circumstances as they show themselves, may complain, may try to change them, but after a while, when you have become wiser and there is a certain distance between you and the event, well, you will realize that it was just what you needed to do to make the necessary progress. And you know, it is a will, a supreme goodwill which arranges all things around you. Even when you complain and protest instead of accepting, it is exactly at such moments that it acts most effectively. Such a sentence, listen to it again. It is a will, a supreme good will which arranges all things around you. And even when you complain and protest instead of accepting it, it is exactly at such moments that it acts most effectively. So, sometimes the supreme goodwill comes by making circumstances difficult. Suppose I deep inside want to give myself to the mother and I want only the mother, but I have other great attachments. And my aspiration is I want you more than anything. So, of course, to fulfill that aspiration, grace will take action to sever your attachments. And that's the time you will cry the most and you won't see the goodwill in it. But at that time, the goodwill is acting most powerfully. That's what she's saying. Remember, no, that sentence in Savitri, whether it seem good or evil to man's eyes, only for good the secret will can work. Can work, not even does work. Its design is only that it can only work this way. Look at his play of words. He's not even said it will work. Will is it will or it will not. This is the only way it can work. That's how its programming is. I remember that once we spoke of mother's words again. I remember that once we spoke of courage as one of the perfections. I remember having written it down once in a list. But this courage means having a taste for the supreme adventure. And this taste for supreme adventure is aspiration. An aspiration which takes hold of you completely and flings you without calculation and without reserve and without a possibility of withdrawal into the great adventure of the divine discovery, the great adventure of the divine meeting, and the yet greater adventure of the divine realization. You throw yourself into the adventure without looking back and without asking for a single minute what's going to happen. For if you ask what is going to happen, you will never start. See, it's like if you look at evolution, the fish became the amphibian, right? Land and water. So first, when the fish, which knows only how to breathe in water, it's told go on land, we don't know, we don't remember that part of our evolution. But there was no older fish to teach that struggling fish that this is how you learn to breathe on land also. It has to just struggle and be guided by an invisible something to find its way. So it's like that when we are living in an ego-centered existence, that's our fish existence. We don't know how to live without the ego. And it's a big struggle to learn to also come on land and live, because there's no one in our species really, I mean very few and far in between, who can tell you exactly how to do it. There's no textbook that will tell you how to do it. Fish will have fish textbooks, hypothetically telling it about gills and whatever. But there'll be no textbook to tell it how do you go on land and breathe. So this is the great adventure of consciousness, and you need a lot of courage to break your past way of being and step forward into the new and say, yes, Sri Aurobindo says your attitude should be have it I must and have it I will. And that's the chant of fire towards its sky, have it I must and have it I will. So Mother says that takes a lot of courage to give up the old way of being and willing to take on the adventure of a new way of being. An aspiration which takes hold of you completely and flings you without calculation and without reserve and without a possibility of withdrawal into the great adventure of the divine discovery, the great adventure of the divine meeting, the yet greater adventure of the divine realization. You throw yourself into the adventure without looking back and without asking for a single minute what's going to happen. For if you ask what is going to happen, you never start. You always remain stuck there, rooted to the spot, afraid to lose something, to lose your balance. That's why I speak of courage, but really it is aspiration. So Mother's saying aspiration is courage, a form of courage. They go together. A real aspiration is something full of courage. And these are beautiful lines from Savitri, absolutely gorgeous lines, page 332. To me, it felt like it's describing aspiration in the most beautiful way. So this is of course Ashwapati's state of being that's being described. So abandoned it lay, alone, imperishable, immobile with excess of passionate will. His living, his is Ashwapati's, Savitri's father's, his living sacrificed an offered heart. So abandoned it lay, what lay? Ashwapati's heart, his psychic being. Abandoned means it's not being touched by thoughts, emotions, all that it's abandoned from. Abandoned it lay, alone, imperishable, it can't be destroyed. Immobile, because this very quality of psychic being is silence, so it's immobile. With excess of passionate will, but it's not a sterile, dry silence. It's a silence lit by aspiration, so that's passionate will. Immobile, but with excess of passionate will. See how he's played with words. You think something immobile is very peaceful, very calm. You don't associate immobility with passion. But he's saying immobile with excess of passionate will. Will for what? To find the mother. That's aspiration. His living sacrificed an offered heart, absorbed in adoration mystical, turned to its far off fount of light and love. I told you that the psychic being is always turned to the divine like a sunflower to the sun. So his living sacrificed an offered heart, absorbed in adoration mystical, turned to its far off fount of light and love. In the luminous stillness of its mute appeal is its aspiration, it's still, it's mute, but it's still aspiring. It's not, aspiration is not that crying and dancing and going mad over God. That's not the kind of aspiration Mother and Sri Aurobindo advocated. It's something very quiet. So, in the luminous stillness of its mute appeal, it looked up to heights it could not see. Now, that's the beauty of human aspiration. We sense something, but we can't grasp it. Like we love a faceless face, as a poem says. We love something, but sometimes we can't put 100% of face to it. So it looked up to heights it could not see. It yearned from longing depths it could not leave. So the depths are the subconscious, which is pulling it down. But it's yearning, the divine presence even in the subconscious is yearning for God. So there's that beautiful poem of Sri Aurobindo on a tree standing beside a shore, lifting its topmost boughs towards the sky, earth bound, heaven amorous. It's bound to the earth with its roots, but it's in love with the sun and the sky, heaven amorous. Body and brain hungry for the earth, its heavenly flight detain. Earthbound, heaven amorous, body and brain hungry for the earth. Hungry for the earth is hungry for all our desires, all our egoistic desires. Keep me well, keep me wealthy, keep me this, keep me that. So those aren't aspirations, those are desires of our ego. So body and brain hungry for the earth, its heavenly flight detain. So that's what it's again saying here. It looked up to the heights it could not see. It yearned from longing depths it could not leave. In the center of this vast and fateful trance, halfway between his free and fallen selves. Fallen self is the self in Prakriti, the outer being. Free is the self with a capital S. Halfway between his free and fallen selves, interceding between God's day and the mortal's night. So who is God's day is wisdom, light. Mortal's night is our ignorance. So who is it that intercedes between the enlightened part of us, which is God's day, and the ignorant part of us, which is the mortal's night? Who intercedes? The psychic being, the mother's presence in us. Interceding twixt God's day and the mortal's night, accepting worship as its only law. So beautiful. The psychic being obeys no other law. Its only law is I want to love you. That's my only law. Accepting worship as its single law. Accepting bliss as the sole cause of things. So for it, it only accepts love and it accepts bliss as the sole cause of things. Refusing the austere joy which none can share. The austere joy is the joy of nirvana, escaping. Psychic being refuses that. Refusing the austere joy which none can share. Refusing the calm that lives for calm alone. That's the nirvanic calm which lives for calm alone. To her it turned, for whom it will to be. The psychic being turned to the mother, because its only will is to be for her, because it's a part of her within us. To her it turned, for whom it will to be. In the passion of its solitary dream. So the psychic being is solitary in the sense here no thought reaches, it's alone with itself. In the passion of its solitary dream, it lay like a closed, soundless oratory. Oratory is like a church, a place of worship. So inside us there is this soundless temple, place of worship. It lay like a closed, soundless oratory where sleeps a consecrated argent floor. Argent is silver. Silver is the color of peace, moonlight. So I told you, he paints with words in Savitri. So he's created a whole word picture of the psychic being. That it's a closed and soundless place of worship, an oratory. It has a silver floor which is consecrated. Even the floor is consecrated. A consecrated argent floor, lit by a single and untrembling ray, like the ray of Matri Mandir. It's single and untrembling. It doesn't shake in its will. An invisible presence kneels in prayer. So the psychic being is something in us which is an invisible presence which is always kneeling in prayer. So beautiful. You can just see it, no, inside you. A soundless oratory, a consecrated argent floor, a single untrembling ray, and an invisible presence which is constantly turned to the Mother in prayer. One of the most fabulous passages, and I'll just read it again without explanation, just absorb it. Abandoned it lay, alone, imperishable, immobile with excess of passionate will, his living, sacrificed and offered heart, absorbed in adoration mystical, turned to its far-off fount of light and love, in the luminous stillness of its mute appeal. It looked up to the heights it could not see. It yearned from the longing depths it could not leave. In the center of his vast and fateful trance, halfway between his free and fallen selves, interceding twixt God's day and mortal's night, accepting worship as its single law, accepting bliss as the sole cause of things, refusing the austere joy which none can share, refusing the calm that lives for calm alone. To her it turned for whom it willed to be. In the passion of its solitary dream, it lay like a closed, soundless oratory where sleeps a consecrated argent floor, lit by a single and untrembling ray, and an invisible presence kneels in prayer. Further, page 332 going to 333, Savitri. Armed with the intuition of a bliss. So this psychic being, it's armed. Armed means a soldier is armed with a sword. So psychic being is armed with the intuition of a bliss. It senses that there's a bliss which is the cause of everything, to which some moved tranquility was the key. I just marvel at how he uses the words. Look, he's always using two opposites to bring out the real meaning. Like moved is very touched and tranquility is peace. So peace you would think is just that, but this is a moved tranquility, to which some moved tranquility was the key. So what's the moved tranquility a key to? The intuition of bliss. When you're really touched by a presence inside which makes you calm, it gives you the intuition of this bliss. So armed with the intuition of a bliss, to which some moved tranquility was the key, it persevered through life's huge emptiness. The psychic being persevered through life's huge emptiness, amid the blank denials of the world. It sent its voiceless, so the blank denials of the world are things that deny God, deny light, deny something beyond. So the mind, the vital, it will keep saying, but how can it be? Life is so ordinary. How can life be filled with God touch, etc.? So amid all these blank denials of the world, it sent its voiceless prayer to the unknown. It doesn't even know. Sometimes you don't even know what you're yearning for, but there is just a yearning. So it sent its voiceless prayer to the unknown. It listened for the footsteps of its hopes returning through the void immensities. It waited for the fiat of the word. Fiat is like a huge chariot which carries things. It waited for the fiat of the word that comes through the still self from the Supreme. So psychic being, you know, when I think of the psychic being, and that's why I put a Nandi on my altar. This is just my take. Psychic being is like Nandi. It's always waiting for Shiva to come. You know, Nandi is always outside the temple. Shiva may take 1,000 years to come and ride it, but Nandi will patiently wait, never gets agitated. And Nandi for me is the real symbol of meditation, to just wait without waiting. To wait without waiting, that's what Nandi is. So that's what this is saying. It sent its voiceless prayer to the unknown. It listened for the footsteps of its hopes, returning through the void immensities. It waited for the fiat of the word that comes through the still self from the Supreme. Beautiful passage. I'll read it, just listen without explanation. Actually, explanations always dilute Savitri, so let's compensate for that. Armed with the intuition of a bliss, to which some moved tranquility was the key, it persevered through life's huge emptiness, amid the blank denials of the world. It sent its voiceless prayer to the unknown. It listened for the footsteps of its hopes, returning through the void immensities. It waited for the fiat of the word that comes through the still self from the Supreme. Okay, so we said fire is aspiration, then the other Mahabhuta, water, is surrender, right? Because fire is all about I want you, I want only you to the mother, and water is you carry me, right? If you see how water is, there's so much to learn from water. Actually, what all these elements are such living essences that if you ever had the fortune of sitting in the Himalayas near rivers or whatever, they become your teachers. If you just spend time sitting with a river, it just transforms you. I can't explain this, but if you ever, I remember when I used to go trekking to the mountains by the Bias River. That time I didn't even really know what meditation or whatever was, but just hours would pass sitting, listening to the river, feeling it. And I know something was shifting deeply inside me. That's the power nature has. So water, fire, all these are something very living. We are not being poetic when we are saying all these. They are living essences of all this, and if you twin with them, you become something of them. So if you look at water, if you look at a drop of water, this was what our whole morning class, yoga class was about. If it falls on a thorn also, it will soften. And if it falls on soft mud also, it will soften. Why? Because water inherently doesn't judge a thorn as a thorn or soft mud as soft mud. To water, thorn and soft mud are both earth, and it knows earth will carry it to its sea. It's not making haste to reach the sea. It just softens into earth and you take me. And the water drop that falls over a thorny landscape will never have a mind that complains that, oh, you're taking me over thorns, and that other drop is going over beautiful rose gardens. Because water knows that the earth knows the shortest way to take it to the sea. For this water drop, if the shortest way to reach the sea is to go over thorns, it will take it over thorns. For that water drop, the shortest way over roses, it will take it over roses. Earth loves every water drop equally, and water trusts that. So wherever it falls, it just drops, it surrenders and lets earth carry. So that is water, just surrender. So mother's words on surrender. Surrender, mother says, is the decision to hand over our life to the divine. Like earth hands over its life, water hands over its life to earth, right? Carry me however you want. I'm falling into you. I'm not doing anything to move this way or that way. You carry me. Surrender is the decision to take over, to hand over the responsibility of your life to the divine. Without this decision, nothing is at all possible. If you do not surrender, the yoga is entirely out of question. Everything else comes naturally after it, for the whole process starts with surrender. You can have a strong intuition that the divine alone is the truth, and a luminous conviction that without the divine you cannot manage. Or you may have a spontaneous feeling that this line is the only way of being happy. A strong psychic desire to belong exclusively to the divine. I do not belong to myself, you say, and give up the responsibility of your being to the truth. Then comes self-offering. Here I am, a creature of various qualities, good and bad, dark and enlightened. I offer myself as I am to you. Take me up with all my ups and downs, conflicting impulses and tendencies. Do whatever you like with me. Can we say that to mother? Do whatever you like with me? No. We are always giving her instructions. Do this with me, do that with me. Do this with my body, do this with my child, do this with my work. Which is also okay. If that's the stage of evolution we are at, it's fine. But surrender is this wholehearted saying, do whatever you like with me. In the course of your self-offering, you start unifying your being around what has taken the first decision, the central psychic will. So the first thing that decides to surrender to the mother or is in surrender to the mother is the central psychic will. So most of us have led ordinary lives till we come to the mother, right? Then once we come to the mother and we see her acting in our lives and whatever, something in us starts opening to her more and more, trusting her more and more, surrendering to her more and more. That is the central psychic will. But there are still parts of us which don't surrender to her, which want our will. The ego wants its will more than anything, right? The ego wants a comfortable life. It wants the conventional ideas of happiness. But is a happy life always an evolutionary life? No. Look at our sages. Do you think they've all had externally a very happy life? Look at Mirabai, reduced to a beggar princess. Or look at Ram, I mean, what he went through. Even Krishna, he lost his whole army. Externally, they didn't have great lives. If you look at Sri Aurobindo also, the jail and whatever, you look at Mother, the last few years of her life. So externally, it may not be exactly a very happy life, but it's a great life because it's a life of great progress. The soul wants progress, the ego wants comfort and happiness. So every time we won't get that comfort and happiness. If our progress lies in going through the thorny landscape to reach our sea faster, so be it. So that's what this is. In the course of your self-offering, you start unifying your being around what has taken the first decision, the central psychic will. All the jarring elements of your nature have to be harmonized. They have to be taken up one after another and unified with the central will. So firstly, we have to identify what are the elements in me which are not surrendered. Very often, there is an egoistic ambition that I want to be something, which is not bad. It's part of individualizing. But eventually that has to be surrendered. Eventually the ambition for any work should be, Mother, I want your victory in your work. Mother, I want to give myself to you in the work. But if we are honest, in most of the work we do, we want appreciation from the world. We want to be the best at what we do, not out of an urge for self-perfection, but out of comparing with others. I want to be better than that competitor. I want to be better. So all that is egoistic ambition, and that has to be surrendered. So whenever you see that, that has to be caught. The psychic doesn't have it, that's for sure. But whichever part of me has it, I gently work with it, I identify it, I catch it, I offer it to the central psychic will. I work with it as if I'm working with a child. It's not bad. I don't have to feel bad because it's there. Sri Aurobindo writes somewhere that must a child already be an adult? No. It will take time, it's work in progress. So be gentle with the ego, it's not bad. It's just in a way a child consciousness in terms of evolution. It has to mature into an adult consciousness. So all the jarring elements of your nature have to be harmonized. They have to be taken up one after another and unified with the central being. You may offer yourself to the divine with a spontaneous movement, but it is not possible to give yourself effectively without this unification. The more you are unified, the more you are able to realize self-giving. And once the self-giving is complete, consecration follows. It is the crown of the whole process of realization, the last step of the graduation, after which there is no more trouble and everything runs smoothly. But you must not forget that you cannot become integrally consecrated at once. You are often deluded into such a belief when, for a day or two, you have a strong movement of a particular kind. You are led to hope that everything else will automatically follow in its wake. But in fact, if you become the least bit self-complacent, you retard your own advance. For your being is full of innumerable tendencies at war with one another, almost different personalities, we may say. When one of them gives itself to the divine, the others come up and refuse their allegiance. We have not given ourselves, they cry. Now they won't, it's a very subtle thing, like suppose for some work you decide that I'm giving this to the mother, whichever way it goes, I'm fine with it. But some part of your ego will come up with anxiety, array, but if it doesn't go well, then this will happen, then what will I do? So you have to identify that part of yourself which can be anxious. That part is not consecrated, obviously, no? Anxiety means there is an ego which wants to preserve itself. Otherwise, you can't be anxious. So that part you have to catch and work with it and slowly work on transforming it. Then you bid them to be quiet, these parts which are not given to the mother, and show them the truth. Patiently you have to go around your whole being, exploring each nook and corner, facing all those anarchic elements in you which are waiting for their psychological, anarchic is revolting, which revolt against what you centrally want, which are waiting for their psychological moment to come up. And it is only when you have made the entire round of your mental, vital and physical nature, persuaded everything to give itself to the divine, that thus achieved an absolute unified consecration, that you put an end to your difficulties. Then indeed yours is a glorious walk towards transformation. For you no longer go from darkness to knowledge, but from knowledge to knowledge, light to light, happiness to happiness. The complete consecration is undoubtedly not an easy matter, and it might take an almost indefinitely long time if you had to do it all by yourself, by your own independent effort. But when the divine grace is with you, it is not exactly like that. With a little push from the divine now and then, a little push in this direction and in that, the work becomes comparatively quite easy. Of course, the length of time depends on each individual, but it can be very much shortened if you make a really firm resolve. Resolution is the one thing required. Resolution is the master key. All has to be done by working of the mother's force, aided by your aspiration, devotion and surrender. This is like a mantra of integral yoga. All has to be done by the working of the mother's force. You can't do it on your own. What you can do is cultivate your aspiration, devotion and surrender. You do that and the mother will change you. Only she can, you can't. Okay, so again an exquisite passage from Savitri, page 317. So this is talking, this passage, now this is something Ashwapati is experiencing. He has reached great spiritual heights, but his abysses, his sort of outer nature, subconscious, that has still not completely opened to light. So even in a Mahayogi like him, there is a resistance. There are parts of him which are revolting against light. So we'll find this very relatable. In the texture of our bound humanity, in the fabric of our bound humanity, we are bound by our nature. He, that is Ashwapati, felt the stark resistance, huge and dumb. Dumb means it didn't speak to him of anything, he just felt it. Huge and dumb of our inconscient and unseeing base. Unseeing base is the subconscious, the inconscient. Unseeing because it has no vision. The stubborn, mute rejection in life's depths. So there is something in our very depths which says no to light, no to God, no to progress, which says it's good to live an ordinary life. Why should I aspire for more? That is rejection in our depths. And that is really, of course, when I talk about Savitri, it's only what I have perceived. So I'm not saying it's universal, but that is what really death is. Death is negation. Death is in Savitri, there's the debate between Savitri and death. So death is that part of us which negates our light, which says, I'm no good, I can't be good, I can't do this, I can't do that. And Savitri, who's arguing with death, is the psychic being within us. So the whole dialogue of death and Savitri is the dialogue of the negation in our depths with the light in our depths. So the ignorant know in the origin of things. So this no to my own light, this death in my own being, a veiled collaboration with the night. Veiled means I'm not even conscious of it. But this part of me is collaborating with darkness and night and everything that's dark. A veiled collaboration with the night, even in himself survived and hid from his view. From a Mahayogi like Ashwapati who had crystal clear vision, even from his view, this resistance was hidden. Still something in his earthly being kept its kinship with the inconscient whence it came. A shadowy unity with a vanished past. It's a past which doesn't exist except in his consciousness, except in his subconscious archives. But there's a shadowy, it's not really visible, it's obscure. He's identified with that instead of being identified with the light. A shadowy unity with a vanished past, treasured in an old world frame, was lurking there, secret, unnoted by the illumined mind. and in subconscious whispers and in dream. Very often you've noticed this, that you sleep well, but you wake up with your weak points speaking. For example, if you have lower back pain, you'll wake up with stiff lower back. If you have a tendency for burning eyes, you'll sleep well, but you'll wake up with burning eyes. Because at night, whatever is in your subconscious gets churned and gets thrown out. That's why for those of you who come for the yoga classes, I find the morning rite so beautiful, because it's the first thing you do in bed and it removes the shadows of the day. So, a veiled collaboration with the night, even in himself, survived and hid from his view. Still, something in his earthly being kept its kinship with the inconscient whence it came. A shadowy unity with a vanished past, treasured in an old world frame, was lurking there, secret, unnoted by the illumined mind, and in subconscious whispers and in dreams, still murmured at the mind's and the spirit's choice. So, mind's and spirit's choice is the mother or God. But these subconscious whispers are saying, "Arey, what are you doing? Don't go there. Just live an ordinary life." Like death says to Savitri, "Be the two-legged worm that you are." So that kind of murmurs. Still murmured at the spirit, mind's and spirit's choice. Its treacherous elements spread like slippery grains, hoping the incoming truth might stumble and fall. You know, if there's somebody evil who wants us to fall, it'll put slippery grains, right? So we walk on it and we slide. So these subconscious whispers are like that evil person who spreads those slippery grains, so we may stumble on our walk towards truth. In its treachery elements spread like slippery grains, hoping the incoming truth might stumble and fall. And all ideal voices wandering moaned and pleaded for heavenly leniency. So, like very often we feel, okay, I've read one page of Savitri, now I can watch 1 hour of Netflix. That's pleading for heavenly leniency, right? Now be lenient with me. I've done my bit, now I can be foolish. So, no, I'm not watch Netflix, but I'm just giving you an example. Whenever we've done something, we feel, now I've done my bit reaching out for the higher life. Now much more of ordinary life. So, and pleaded for a heavenly leniency to the gracious imperfections of our earth and the sweet weaknesses of our mortal state. This now he willed to discover and exile. This now Ashwapati willed, I want to find the source of these subconscious murmurs. These now he willed to discover and exile, the element in him betraying God. So Judas, the typical person who betrayed Christ, we have a Judas within all of us, something in us which is always betraying Mother in small and big ways. How do we betray her?
By being unconscious of her presence.
By being see, if you're unconscious of her presence, you can't help it, but choosing things that will make you unconscious over choosing her, choosing other things. We feel if we've chosen Mother for 10 minutes in our day, bas rest of the day I can choose everything else. It doesn't work like that. In integral yoga, Mother says this has to be your whole life. This can't be a part of your life. Everything that is not given to the divine, in their perspective, is a waste of your life. Really. Every moment of our life where we are not thinking of the mother, not consciously working for her, giving her. From our perspective, it's a waste of our life. So every time we are given to ordinary things, or when we consciously nurture ill will inside us. See, Sri Aurobindo says so beautifully in Synthesis of Yoga that just remember, any emotion you feel towards anyone, you're feeling it towards God, because everyone is God. So every time you harbor ill will, anger, in a way you're betraying God. Every time you harbor, there's something in us which doesn't like people to go ahead. It's very subtle. We feel if somebody gets more, we get less. We feel resentful for them going ahead. But that is also betraying mother, because everyone who shines is mother shining, no? If we say Jai Ma, victory to the mother, and we are resenting her victory in that one and that one and that one, we are actually betraying her, right? She can't be victorious only in us. That's not possible. That's what the ego wants. I want to say Jai Ma, but only in me. I don't want you to be. It can't work like that. So we have so many little things in us by which we betray God. Even when we spend money carelessly, Mother has said 100 times, no wealth belongs to you. You are the guardian of wealth. All your money belongs to me. Be a good trustee. So instead of spending money in a way that it serves Mother's purposes in my life or in life of others, if I carelessly spend it, or if I feel I'll spend it only on myself and not on anyone else, or whatever, there are so many ways we betray Mother, isn't it? So, I'll just read this. Do you want me to read this again, this passage? Yeah, listen to it without explanation. In the texture of our bound humanity, he felt the stark resistance, huge and dumb, of our inconscient and unseeing base, the stubborn mute rejection in life's depths, the ignorant no in the origin of things, a veiled collaboration with the night, even in himself survived and hid from his view, still something in his earthly being kept its kinship with the inconscient whence it came, a shadowy unity with a vanished past, treasured in an old world frame, was lurking there, secret, unnoted by the illumined mind, and in subconscious whispers and in dream, still murmured at the mind's and spirit's choice, its treacherous elements spread like slippery grains, hoping the incoming truth might stumble and fall, and old ideal voices wandering moaned and pleaded for heavenly leniency to the gracious imperfection of our earth and the sweet weaknesses of our mortal state. This now he willed to discover and exile, the element in him betraying God. Let's take a moment to think, what would it be in each of us, the element in us which betrays God? Judgment of others, yes, and being controlled by that judgment. Anything else? Greed, yes. What? Yes, greed, definitely.
Apathy and guilty.
Huh?
Apathy or guilty or fear within ourselves.
Being consumed by apathy, guilt, fear, self-doubt, low self-esteem, selfishness, yes. You want to? What? Yes. What would be lack of sincerity? An example?
For most people,
Loudly.
I feel, is
want this?
No.
Okay.
So you're not sincerity. As you keep giving that example of a person in love, you always think of that person in love. That person becomes the center of your existence. Mother is not the center of my existence. I can honestly. It is them.
What Nash is saying, if you're in love with a significant other, that person is your background consciousness whole day. You're all the time thinking of that person. But we are sincere when instead of that person it's mother. But that's not the case.
Since we are not constantly wanting to be connected to her or to think about her or to want to be in connection with her. We are okay, it comes, you come for Savitri, you feel good, then you go back and you forget about it, you have your own day, okay, what did I eat, what did I do, I'll sleep, next day these chores going on. And then suddenly one thought may come, oh man, bow down, and then I go away, spend my day, come back. So it's like, in a day, how many moments do you think of mother?
Yeah.
Big question.
Yeah.
Big question mark.
Yeah.
Yes, you feel very happy that okay, you've come and you've sat, but how much of, as you said, the background consciousness has mother?
Yeah, sincerity is when mother really becomes our background consciousness. She's, there's that song, You're Always on My Mind. So if that we can really say to mother, then that's being sincere. So now this passage is surrender and personal will. If you surrender, you have to give up effort. But that does not mean that you have to abandon also willed action, mother says. On the contrary, you can hasten the realization by lending your will to the divine will. That too is surrender in another form. She's explaining it. What is required of you is not a passive surrender in which you become like a block, but to put your will at the disposal of the divine will. You have a will and you can offer that will. Take the example of becoming conscious of your nights. If you take the attitude of passive surrender, you would say, when it is the divine will that I should become conscious, then I will become conscious. Yeah, that is passive surrender. On the other hand, if you offer your will to the divine, you begin to will, you say, I will become conscious of my nights. So mother is saying surrender doesn't mean you do nothing, because that's pointless, but you offer your will to the divine. On the other hand, I will become conscious of my nights. You have the will that it should be done. You do not sit down idle and wait. The surrender comes in when you take the attitude that says, I give my will to the divine. I intensely want to become conscious of my nights. I have not the knowledge, let the divine will work it out for me. Yeah, this is a beautiful way where you give your will to the divine. I want to be conscious. And if you are conscious of your nights, you won't wake up in the morning with those typical things that come out at night. And because you fall into unconsciousness, that it gets thrown out in your body. Your will must continue to act steadily, not in the way of see, we've done many series of talks on how to make your nights conscious. If you go on Homecoming, you'll find them. Words of the Mother only. Lots of stuff she said on it. I give my will to the divine. I intensely want to become conscious of my nights. I have not the knowledge. Let the divine will work it out for me. Your will must continue to act steadily, not in the way of choosing a particular action or demanding a particular object, but as an ardent aspiration concentrated upon the end to be achieved. This is the first step. If you're vigilant, if your attention is alert, you will certainly receive something in the form of an inspiration of what is to be done, and you must forthwith proceed to do it. Only you must remember that to surrender is to accept whatever is the result of your action. though the result may be quite different from what you expect. On the other hand, if your surrender is passive, you will do nothing and try nothing. You will simply go to sleep and wait for a miracle. So mother is not talking about a passive surrender. She's talking about a very active living surrender. Now, this question, what is the test of our surrender when things go wrong? It's very easy to surrender when things are going well. But when the rubber hits the road, then are we in a state of surrender. So, true surrender is a difficult thing, mother says. For example, you have decided to offer your life to the divine. You take that decision. But all of a sudden, something altogether unpleasant, unexpected happens to you, and your first movement is to react and protest. Yet, you have made the offering. You have said, once for all, my life belongs to the divine. And then suddenly an extremely unpleasant incident happens. That can happen. And there is something in you that reacts, that does not want it. But here, if you want to be truly logical with your offering, you must bring forward this unpleasant incident. Make an offering of it to the divine. Tell him very sincerely, let your will be done. If you have decided it that way, it will be that way. Very difficult. How many of us can do it? We will immediately pray to mother, make it right, make it right, make it right. How many of us will say, let your will be done? If you have decided it that, see, let's be intelligent about it. Which do you think will have better results? Suppose I really want an outcome, okay, and I'm not the outcome I want is A, and the outcome that seems to be coming is B. If I surrender to the mother and say, let your will be done, do you think I'll be delivered out of that difficult outcome B faster? Or if I pray to the mother, please deliver me out, which will be faster? Obviously, let your will be done. You all remember that aeroplane story, right? Who doesn't? Because I must have said it 20 times on my talk, but I'll say it again. So, this is a true story. It happened to a sadhak who had come to Pondicherry. He'd met the mother, and those days there are fascinating stories of how one moment with the mother changed everything for them. So this person also, one moment with her, looking into her eyes, or however they had the exchange, I don't know the details of that, but he came out a completely different person. And then he was flying out of Chennai, he was on plane, and the weather turned bad. The pilot was announcing, fasten your seat belts, everything started shaking, people started having panic attacks because it was really bad. It looked like the plane was going to crash. And this person was so altered in that one moment with the mother that he sat back. He didn't pray to the mother. He didn't say, save me. He just said, Mother, I've met you once. I know if I live, I'll be good. If I die, I'll be good. So he just sat back like that. And the plane landed. And he wrote a letter to the mother saying this had happened. And when her secretary was handing the mother the letter, without seeing the name, she said, oh yes, I know this letter is from so and so. His plane was destined to crash, but his surrender to me was so complete that my force could act completely and change the collective karma of everyone on the plane. And there was one person on plane whose horoscope apparently said he would die that year. So it's common sense. If he had really prayed to the mother, of course she would have replied, but maybe the plane would have crashed and he would have come out with injuries. I'm just saying hypothetically. But when his surrender was so complete, the result has to be the best. So actually it's a more intelligent thing to do, but a more difficult thing to do. It's easier to pray.
I read this very nice quote by someone on that newspaper that sometimes our prayers become obstacles to our greater good.
Yeah, sometimes our prayer becomes obstacles to our greater good. We don't know what to ask. It's all
When the
limited.
Chinese curse the may your wishes.
May your wishes come true. In China, if they want to curse you, they'll tell you, may all your wishes come true. So yeah, I mean, it's, we feel if we surrender, oh my God, something bad will happen. But just try it once for little things. When things go wrong, instead of praying, try surrendering. But it has to be authentic. I can't tell you try surrendering, because that's fake. Surrender is something that naturally will flower from you one day. So even for the smallest thing, something that is not in keeping with what you expected, what you have worked for, instead of an opposite reaction coming in spontaneously, irresistibly, you draw back. Not that, no. If you have made a complete surrender, a total surrender, well, it does not happen like that. You are as quiet, as peaceful, as calm, as in one case as in another. Whatever happens to you, you're calm. Mother has brought me to it, she'll take me through it. And perhaps you had the notion that it would be better if it had happened in a certain way. But if it happens differently, you find that this also is all right. You might have, for example, worked very hard to do a certain thing, so that something might happen. You might have given much time, much of your energy, much of your will, and all that not for your sake, but say for the divine work. That is the offering. Now suppose that after having taken all this trouble, done all this work, made all these effort, it all goes just the other way round. It does not succeed. If you are truly surrendered, you say, it is good, it is all good, it is all right. I did what I could as well as I could. Now it is not my decision, it is the decision of the divine. I accept entirely what he decides. On the other hand, if you do not have this deep and spontaneous surrender, you tell yourself, how is it I took so much trouble to do a thing which is not for a selfish purpose, which is for the divine work, and this is the result, it is not successful. 99 out of 100 times it is like that. True surrender is a very difficult thing. Now the third part is earth, which is equanimity. We were doing fire, water, earth, but we'll take that up next time. So let's sit quietly. And like we did at the beginning of the class, the fire. I told you to formulate 3 sentences with I will, focusing at the navel, the Manipur chakra, and 3 sentences I will not and complete. So that will be our collective aspiration. We are in a very special place. So let's be quiet and make it. The very message Mother gave for this center, you'll see it in the corner here. In this house, every true aspiration will be answered. Something like that. I'm not saying it verbatim. So make your aspiration. You're in a very special place. And hands together in a namaste at the heart, thumbs resting on the chest. Take a long, slow inhalation. Breathe out with Om.